If the Aggies want to beat the Arkansas Razorbacks on Saturday, they can't let KJ Jefferson run all day long.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. This episode of Locked On Aggies is brought to you by eBay Motors. A championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. So for parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check. Stay in the game with eBay Guaranteed Fit. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. We're getting closer and closer to the Aggies matchup with the Arkansas Razorbacks. So it is time to talk about some of the biggest matchups in this game. And where do the Aggies have to win on the field to win this game? And the number one thing I'm looking at, and there's one thing, we're going to read some quotes in segment 2 from Coach Fisher and talk about an update for Conner Weigman's injury. But KJ Jefferson likes to use his legs. And it's funny because his style of running, he's not a burner. You know, he's a big quarterback who can run the football and truck stick somebody and knock you over, run through your face. That is what KJ Jefferson brings to the table as a runner. But he is quick. I mean, he's not slow, and he wants to run the football. I watched their game last week against LSU. There were countless times, and they were drawn up quarterback runs. It wasn't like, there were a few where he was supposed to throw the football and decided to just take off, but there were a lot of designed quarterback runs. And if you don't bottle that up, it's hard to stop them, and it's hard to stop this offense because that's how they want to beat you. Last week against LSU, let's see how many. Now, the one annoying thing about college is sacks count as KJ, but there you go. KJ Jefferson carried the football 16 times for 48 yards last week against LSU with a long of 25. He's going to run the football, and he's going to run the football a lot. He led the team in carries. Now, of course, Rocket Sanders was out for this ball game, but their running back, 15 carries. So his KJ Jefferson, 16 carries, led the team. So looking at this, you've got to keep him, and it takes everybody. This is one of those things. The front seven's got to help, the safeties, the corners. If you see it's a run, you got to get to the football and help. You can't let him break runs. You can't let him get outside the pocket and pick up a ton of yards with his legs. That is how you lose to Arkansas if you let him run for a whole bunch of yards. You got to bottle him up, and you can't let him get out on third down. You do not want KJ Jefferson to, 3rd and 7, and you have great coverage downfield, but there goes KJ, and he picks up 8 yards to get the first down. You have got to stay with him, and you have got to make sure he doesn't take off and he doesn't use his legs well in this football game. I am not sold on Arkansas's ability to run the football at a high level without Rocket Sanders. I haven't heard much of an update on Rocket Sanders. I have a feeling it's going to be one of those, like, we're going to find out Friday or Saturday what his status is for the game. But he could already be out, and they just aren't saying it. I haven't seen anything on it. That's another thing. I'm going to keep y'all updated on Conner Weigman's injury. I'll keep you updated on Rocket Sanders because that is big for this football game. So, I think that I'm not terrified of Arkansas's ability to run the football if you are able to slow down KJ Jefferson. KJ Jefferson, long 25 last week. He can run the ball. He's not this speed demon, like I said, but he is quick, and he can beat you with his legs. So you have got to the front seven. Everybody on that defense needs to have in their head, we are not letting KJ Jefferson run all over us today. You've got to bottle him up. You got to stop him. You got to make sure he's not running for a whole bunch of yards. If you're able to do that, I think the Aggies defense is going to have a good game, and I think they're going to be able to win this ball game. And you got to get pressure on them too. That's to help stop them in the passing game. But also, the more pressure you have on him, the harder it's going to be for him to leave the pocket. It's going to be in his head. And I think that is how you beat KJ Jefferson and this Arkansas Razorback offense, because I am not terrified of their rushing attack outside of KJ Jefferson, assuming Rocket Sanders is out. If Rocket Sanders does play, this is a different conversation, because then you got a whole lot to worry about in the rushing attack. Rocket Sanders is one of the best running backs in the SEC, right up there with Judkins at Ole Miss. I know he hasn't had the year many expected so far, but he's one of the best running backs in the SEC, and you got to watch out for him. So that's a different conversation if he's out there, and we'll have that conversation if we find out the Rocket Sanders will play in this game. But so that is the number one thing to watch out for, is making sure that you keep him in the pocket. If you are able to keep him in the pocket, don't let him roll out. I think that the Aggies are going to win this football game. If KJ Jefferson is able to, run around, it's not good. Now, I'm going to read this real quick. I wanted to look this up. Sam Pittman, Coach Pittman of Arkansas, has no update on Rocket Sanders' status for the Texas A&M game. So that's one of those things we'll just see. We'll just have to see. He's not going to – Coach Pittman's not going to – he's not going to say, hey, he's out, because you want the Aggies to have to prepare for him. And then if he's out, there's an advantage for Coach Pittman. So I understand why he hasn't said anything yet. But if we find out he's going to play, that's a different conversation we'll have later in the week. So – the offensive line getting a push and creating room for the running backs is going to be big against Arkansas. The Razorbacks are number 21 in college football at stopping the run, and they only let up 2.83 yards per carry. LSU was able to rip about $180 on them. I think it was 179. So LSU was able to move the ball on the ground. Now having a mobile quarterback helps and different things like that. But there are 3 previous games, there was nothing going on the ground. LSU was the first game that the opponent was able to move the football on the ground against the Razorbacks. So I just think, and I'm not too terrified of Arkansas secondary. I'm not, it's not Auburn secondary. If you're able to beat Auburn secondary, and I know some Auburn secondary players got hurt down, got banged up, but if you're able to move the football through the air against Auburn secondary, I'm not concerned about moving the football through the air against Arkansas secondary. But I don't want to keep beating the balance drum, but I don't like the thought of having, being one-dimensional. You don't want to be a one-dimensional offense. And what creates one-dimensional offense is not being able to do something. And if Arkansas is just having a good day stopping the run and they are shutting down the Aggies' ground game, then it gets harder to pass the football, because you're going to kind of get away from the run, and it's easy to anticipate. And that's why you can't be one-dimensional in football. And with Arkansas being one of the better run defenses, and it's funny, another team that was up there was Miami. There's a few more SEC teams up there. Arkansas was number 5 in the SEC in this metric, but the numbers are still great. So you need to try and have balance there. If you don't have balance there and you can't run the football, do I still think you can win kind of only throwing the ball? Yeah, I think you can win with Max Johnson hurling that thing. But I don't, do I feel super confident about that? No. I want you to be able to do both things all season long. Run the football, throw the football. If you don't do that, it's definitely a concern for me. So you need to be able to move the football through the air and on the ground. And if you can't, do I still think there's a chance you win the game? Yes. But at the same time, I also kind of look at this and I go, you just don't want to be one-dimensional. So that's the second key here. So another thing here, if the run game isn't working, Max needs to be able to get the football down the field. One thing I'm a little worried about, and Max Johnson is not the average backup quarterback in the SEC, and we've talked about that a ton here on Locked On Aggies, as you everydayers know. But yeah, Max Johnson is not your normal backup quarterback. he can play at a high level. So, but what I am a little worried about is, the backup quarterback plays, and then, oh, wow, he was great. The other team didn't game plan for him. Now the team, Arkansas, is going to be, game planning for him. And it's kind of like, well, is he going to be able to perform at a level similar to what we saw last week? If he does anything similar to what we saw last week, the Aggies win this football game. So Max needs to be able to push the ball down the field through the air if Arkansas is stopping the rushing attack of the Aggies in this game. If Arkansas isn't letting you run the ball, Max needs to push it downfield. And then my last matchup here, and it's one we kind of talked about yesterday, but win the turnover battle. I know that is the most cliche thing in the world. It is. I get that. But winning the turnover battle is going to be how you win this football game. We talked about it. Arkansas creates a ton of turnovers. They have so far this season. Now, we talked about, somebody commented yesterday, it was a great point. Like the Aggies had a turnover kind of stolen from them last week with a bad call in the Auburn game. So things can be different, but you need to win the turnover battle in this game. I think if you win the turnover battle in this game, Texas A&M wins this football game. If you lose the turnover battle in this game, I think this game is going to be a lot closer than it should be and a lot closer than many imagine. So winning the turnover battle is going to be massive in this game. And I think if you want to win this football game, win the turnover battle. That is how you're going to win this ball game. We're going to talk a little bit about an update from Conner Weigman and his injury and read some quotes from Coach Fisher coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at DoorDash. DoorDash is the most amazing thing anyone has ever invented. I stand by that forever. DoorDash can help you out in so many different situations to get food. I can hammer out a couple right now. The first one that comes to mind is this, and because I like to think about the situations I use DoorDash in because it's convenient. It's something I use all the time. If I'm in a big city, if I'm covering a football game somewhere in a big city, if I'm, doing something in a big city that you don't want to get your car out of the valet and you don't want to do this and go find a restaurant, DoorDash, they bring the food right to you. It is so convenient. If you're watching football with your friends and drinks are flowing and you can't get out of the house, order a pizza. DoorDash, it does everything for you. I absolutely love it. And now they offer groceries. Okay, I'm going to lay out a situation for you. You're making pancakes, right? You're making pancakes and you don't have any syrup. That is a problem. That is you can't deal with that. What DoorDash can do now, they can send groceries. They can send the syrup right to your house. It is just the best thing anyone has ever invented, and I highly recommend you going and downloading the app if you don't already have it. Get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to a $20 value when you use code LOCKEDONCollege at checkout. Limited time offer, terms apply. That's 50% off up to $20, no minimum subtotal, and zero delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter code LOCKEDONCollege. Don't forget, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for 50% off your first order with DoorDash. So, little update on Conner Weigman. It was really weird because two updates came out. The first one I saw was 2 to 4 weeks, and it was 2 to 4, and even then, so it was what I saw reported. And I forget who it was that said it, but it was high ankle sprain, 2 to 4 weeks. And it's the funny part about it was I was like, okay, that's not bad. 2 to 4 weeks, we can live with that. But then, so I don't remember who reported that, like I said, but then the actual report came from Coach Fisher, and he said, this is his direct quote, Conner Weigman's status is day-to-day, a little sprain with a little swelling. Do I think Conner Weigman plays on Saturday? I do not. Do I think there is a legitimate chance he is back for the Alabama game? I do. And that is huge. If you're able to get Conner Weigman back for the Alabama game, I think you can win this football game with Max Johnson. Do I think you could win with Max Johnson against Alabama the following week? I do. I do think Max Johnson could win that football game. but I feel a lot better about it with Conner Weigman quarterback in the Aggies. So this is a big deal to Max Johnson. Now, one thing, I got to find this quote that I want to go through some quotes, but one quote that about Max Johnson that I really respected from Coach Fisher was basically saying like, oh, here it is. Max Johnson believes in himself. That's one of the things I love about him. He practiced and competed to be ready to play. He never lost confidence. Losing the job, hurts. Everybody here that's played sports, played at the college level, high school level, when you lose the starting job to somebody, it hurts. It really does. It was like when I was told in high school I was a PO, and I was like, I still want to play first base and hit bombs. But you know what? Wasn't in the cards. And it hurt. But so, you can't lose confidence in yourself. You have to believe in yourself. You have to keep working and working hard. And that's what Max Johnson did. And that's why he was able to come into that Auburn game, succeed, and win the football game for the Aggies. So when you're a backup quarterback, you got to know what your role is. Your role is to be able to come in a football game at any given time and help win a football game. Plus, then, if you do that, the next week you have to be able to play at a high level once again. It can't be the honeymoon of, the backup came in and played well. You got to come in and do it again the next week. That's what we need this week from Max Johnson. This season, you don't want to say lies in the hands of Max Johnson because, you can lose to Arkansas and find a way to win your next two games. But I've talked about you have got to go 2-3 in these next three games. And I think if you want to do that, winning this game on Saturday against the Arkansas Razorbacks is key. So there's a lot riding on Max Johnson's performance on Saturday. We need a big game out of him, and I think he's going to deliver it. I do. I think Max Johnson, I think we're going to see a masterclass. I think he's going to have a big day. The Aggies win this football game. He's carried out of the stadium by Aggie fans, and, and we'll forever remember it when we're playing in the New Year's Six Bowl. Really, I think he's going to have a big game, but I think he has to. This is a game. I think this one might be a little more high scoring than the Auburn game was. I think I know Arkansas's offense is better than Auburn's. Auburn's offense was really painful to watch. So I think, it's a great update on Conner Weigman. Hopefully he's back for the Bama game. I don't think that you're going to see him out there on Saturday. I think that and if we get a new report, wow, it's looking like he might be able to play, we'll discuss that. But as of right now, we are planning to see Max Johnson out there. If something changes, we'll let you know right here on Locked On Aggies. But that's the update I have. It's a great one. It's a really positive one. When I first saw it, your biggest fear is broken ankle, high ankle sprain, and he misses 6 weeks or something bad. So really good update on Conner Weigman. Hopefully we'll see him back out on the field sooner than later. Now we're going to read a few quotes from Coach Fisher, just kind of talking about the game, talking a few things about last week. First thing he talked about was Ruben Owens' fumble, and he said, Coach Fisher said he's going to get a zillion. He's going to get it. He's going to get it a zillion more times. He's a phenomenal player. That's a learning curve. You love seeing a player make a mistake and it doesn't bite the team in the behind. You would hate for that fumble for Ruben Owens, and then Auburn gets back in the game and somehow finds a way to win that game. So Ruben Owens made a mistake. He learned from it, and it didn't cost the Aggies a win. That's a good thing. Good. That's how I like to see a player learn a lesson, is in a win. So that's good to see. Coach Fisher on the running backs, he's been really constant in his message about this running back room. But I think we've got 3 really good guys that we can count on, which is huge for us and what we can do. I thought Le'Veon Moss looked really good on Saturday. I thought we saw some flashes from both Ruben Owens and Amari Daniels. Amari had that big run. Ruben Owens did some good things. I thought every running back had their moment in that football game, which was, once again, that was really cool to see. And then Coach Fisher talking about KJ Jefferson. He says KJ Jefferson reminds him of Cam Newton with his size and ability to be, a tough player to tackle. And that's what I talked about. I'd be interested to know where those two guys line up speed-wise. I would lean toward Cam Newton being a little bit faster, just watching KJ Jefferson play. I don't know that, but that's a great point. He's hard to bring down. He's a big son of a gun. It is hard to bring down KJ Jefferson. So Coach Fisher's right about that. Coach Fisher talking about Arkansas. It's the next step we have to do. We're going to have to play a good football game all the way through and do some things that we need to get better. So still things to clean up. We've talked about that here on Locked On Aggies. But all in all, I think that the Aggies are going to clean some stuff up this week. I think we're going to see. I think this is going to be the games, and it's just a feeling. It's just a kind of feeling in the heart. But I think the Aggies are going to have their best all-together game of the year on Saturday, and it's going to have people really excited. That's just a feeling. I know these games, where they are in this neutral side in Arlington, are always going to be a little weird, but I still think that this is, or at AT&T Stadium, I still think this is a game the Aggies are going to win and play well doing it. Oh, this is funny. This was one of my favorite quotes. It was Coach Fisher talking about, when he was on the field when Auburn was returning the fumble. And he said, I was wondering how to get the ball. I didn't see the fumble. I was trying to get Max Johnson's attention about something. I shouldn't have been out there, but I thought the play was dead. I get it, Coach Fisher. I know that you weren't supposed to be out there, but I got to see that dog in you. When you're out there, if you're out there, you got to make a play. And we didn't see him make a play, and that was a little frustrating. That play went to the house. I think he could have cut down that angle and made a play on the runner, but he didn't. It's something to work on in practice this week. But I think next time Coach Fisher won't make that same mistake. When he's on the field, he's going to make sure to make a tackle. So I feel good about that going forward. And then Coach Fisher talking about playing at AT&T Stadium. He said, I kind of like it up there. I really do. So that's kind of interesting to see. Coach Fisher on the A&M Arkansas rivalry. I get the home and home. And I appreciate it because anytime you can play in college field, I love it. And then he said about AT&T Stadium, it's a venue that it's a tremendous facility. I've never been. I've always wanted to go to AT&T Stadium. I had a teacher in high school that had been. He was a big Cowboys fan, and he always talked about his experience there, and it was really cool. So I would love to get out there sometime. But those are some quotes from Coach Fisher about this week, and it's good to hear a positive report on Conner Weigman. It sounds like we might not see him out there this Saturday, but I think we're going to see him out there sooner than later. We're going to talk about some bowl predictions for the Aggies, the money line and the points for the Arkansas game, and some different ESPN FPI metrics coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to talk to you about our friends over at Jase Medical. I am blessed to be able to talk about two of the most amazing sponsors in the world back-to-back with DoorDash and Jase Medical, not only because they help out the show and they are awesome sponsors, but also because the products are genius. Jase Medical, they started during the pandemic, and they found a problem, and they made a solution, and that is how business works here. What they did, they have two things you can purchase from them: the Jase Case and Jase Daily. The Jase Case is a case that comes with a handful of antibiotics that can help you if you're sick, help you in multiple different situations, and it can be used just around the house. It can be used as an emergency kit if you're going hunting or hiking or fishing or on a vacation. It's something you can have with you at all times just to ensure that you and your family are safe. Smart product. And then Jase Daily, this is the one I tell the story every time, but it really is a great story that explains how great of a product and the company this is. My grandparents, I'll make it short, but my grandparents were in Ecuador. They go every year, or they haven't gone since, but we're in Ecuador during the pandemic. Pandemic hits, of course. Well, they were down there, the pandemic hit, and they ran out of some of their medicines they need, and we couldn't get them to fly back home. So we were like in trouble. How are we going to get them this medicine? And then we couldn't ship the medicine. It was a whole ordeal. And if they would have had Jase Daily, they would have had a year supply of their medicines that they take and they need, and we would have been in this situation. So it was really interesting to see how this company works. It's a great company. I highly recommend going and check them out. You never know when you might need stuff like this, and they are always going to be there to help. Get $20 off these life-saving antibiotics today from Jase Medical by using my code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's JASEMEDICAL.com. Go check them out, ladies and gentlemen. We've got some bowl predictions, and this was an interesting one. And I could have done, I found one. This was somewhat recent. This came out a few days ago, but it's Texas A&M versus the Kansas Jayhawks in the Texas Bowl. I don't know how we feel about it because I want to be in a New Year's Six Bowl. I still think that's on the table for this football team, especially if you do go 2-3 in this 3-game slate. So But that's a current bowl prediction. I think that the Aggies would take care of Kansas. I do. I think they would beat them pretty good. But that is the most recent bowl prediction I've seen. Then this game coming up on Saturday, the Aggies are 6.5-point favorites. Saw it at 7 at one point, 6.5 now. That's a big line for a neutral site game. If this game was at Kyle Field, I would be all about the 6.5-point line. Neutral site, that's a big line. I still think the Aggies can cover this game. I still think they're going to win. I just don't know if they're gonna win, how big they're gonna win. Arkansas is still a good football team. I know they've had a few losses, but they're not a bad football team. And if they play their game and they play well, they can beat you on any given night. So that's a big line. I do think the Aggies win this one. We'll get into more score predictions, later in the week at Locked On Aggies. So there's a lot, to break through there. But that is where the line is currently sitting for this game. And then just real quick run through the ESPN FPI rankings for the remaining games for the Aggies. I didn't put down Abilene Christian because I'm sure it's like 99.0. So the Arkansas, the Aggies have a 72.9% chance to win that ball game. Alabama, the Aggies have a 34.8% chance to win that ball game. Tennessee, the Aggies have a 46.1% chance. That number has gone up. I think it was like 35 at some points. I've seen it at 40. It's up to 46.1. So ESPN's FPI metrics, which, like I said, what those are is just a ton of different numbers and stats and they're starting to think the Aggies have a real shot to go on the road to Neyland and beat the Tennessee Volunteers in Knoxville, which would be huge, huge win for this season. South Carolina, the Aggies have a 79.8% chance to win that ball game. Ole Miss, the Aggies have a 36.5% chance to win that one. Mississippi State, 82.4%. And then LSU, 37.5%. So some of these games that when we talked about in the beginning of the season, the Aggies, aren't going to be favored, maybe shouldn't win. The gap is kind of getting closer and closer to 50-50. And 50-50, that's toss-up. So if we could see this LSU and this Bama, these two numbers, the 37.5 for LSU, 34.8 for Bama, get closer to 50-50, the Aggies are going to win some of those games. If Texas A&M is able to win a handful of these games, they're not going to be playing Kansas in the Texas Bowl. They're going to be playing somebody in the New Year's Six Bowl, which would bring a lot of joy to Aggie fans. That is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you so much for tuning in every single day. It means the world to me. Have a great rest of your day today. We are going to have a cool episode with Locked On Razorbacks host John Neighbors coming up soon. Be waiting on that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Appreciate you tuning in every single day. Have a great rest of your day today, and we will see you tomorrow.